Finally, over COVID, somewhat at least, I'm still recovering, but I'm finally able to actually record this video without coughing my ass off. Thank you so much, everyone, for 1,000 subscribers. That is insane. I'm making a Q&A where you can ask me fucking anything. I don't care what it is. Ask me anything down in the comments below for the Q&A. Remember to write that it's for the Q&A, and I will look at it by then. Today, we're reviewing Fønix. Now, Fønix is, of course, the brand new roller coaster at Fårup Sommerland here in Denmark. It is Denmark's new biggest coaster, and I mean, I've been excited for this since summer last year when we got it announced, and I finally got to ride it on April 8th on Media Day, where I got to ride it 8 times and 5 times the next day on the official opening day of the park and the ride. It is Fårup's 8th current coaster, but their 10th ever roller coaster, and it's already getting a great reputation of being the best coaster in Denmark for a lot of people. It's already by now known as Vekoma's own Airtime machine. I'm pretty sure it is one of the rides they've made with the most airtime ever, and it does have the record in Scandinavia, although it is a bit fishy because they say it has 14 airtime moments, and I'm pretty sure they're counting hang time as airtime. Without further ado, let's get into the technical aspects. Fønix is, of course, a brand new Vekoma MK-1101 model. That is, of course, the very technical term. The more common thing to call it is a Wildcat model, which is more specific to the layout itself. The MK-1101 term comes from the kind of trains that it has. These are the brand new Vekoma trains with brand new Vekoma vests, which are incredibly comfortable. There are 16 riders per train over 8 rows, which is pretty typical for these kind of new Vekomas, except the Top Gun, which is just weird. And then, of course, opened this year in 2022. It's 131.2 feet tall, making it Denmark's tallest coaster. It's 2,969.2 feet long, making it Denmark's longest looping coaster, and it goes 59 miles an hour, making it Denmark's fastest coaster. It also shares the record for inversions in the country, as it has 3 inversions, which is shared with Cobra at Tivoli Friheden and Demonen at Tivoli Gardens. The ride itself is 50 seconds long regarding prime ride time, and that is including the little pre-drop. This was honestly a bit of a shock to me, as I almost felt like it felt just a bit longer, but that's because this is such a great ride that does not let up. But before we even talk about how this thing rides, how does it look?
Pretty bird. Yes.
Intimidating. That's the word for it. This ride looks intimidating because it's so big compared to anything we're used to seeing here in Denmark. It has its own area down at the back of the park, so it just stands very tall amongst all the trees beneath it and around it, and you walk right below the lift hill, making it look even more intimidating. But besides looking intimidating, it also looks beautiful. In fact, it's one of the most beautiful coasters I have ever seen.
It's beautiful!
It has an absolutely fabulous color scheme with the green and white, and it's probably my favorite color scheme I can remember ever seeing on a coaster I've ridden. The trains themselves also look really good. There is a red train with some gold on it, and a yellow train with some silver on it. And it contrasts the theme as well so incredibly great. And so does the track color as well, because of course Fårup is themed to the forest, so the green matches that so well. It's their 4th Vekoma and 4th green coaster as well, and I wouldn't want to see this coaster in any other colors than what it is. Not to mention the area around it, which is also beautiful. There are some great buildings, some pathways as well, wonderful greenery, which will be even better in the summer because a lot of it hasn't grown yet, like grass and stuff. Because of the angles that you can look at this coaster at, it only gets better.
And engage and fire the passenger ejector seat.
Now let's get into what you probably came here for. How does this thing actually ride? Well, of course, it starts out with a classic Vekoma pre-drop. I don't know if it's classic, but it has this pre-drop. This already gives you a great indication of how the ride is going to feel in regards to smoothness. And in all seriousness, the pre-drop is kind of fun in the back row. Not that it really provides any forces, but it gives a nice little sense of speed. The lift hill itself is pretty fast. It slows down at the top though, but that's much better than having like a trim brake on the way down doing the drop. And trust me, it doesn't matter in regards to the layout. It's still fantastic. The first real element of the layout is, of course, the first drop. And I'm just going to be honest, I'm going to say it right off the bat. This is my new favorite main drop on a roller coaster. This drop is absolutely incredible. It blew my mind. My first ride was near the front, and even there it was really good. Near the front row, you're still gonna get some really good floater airtime. It's a very fast pop of airtime, but it's still very good, even though it's of course still floater. So no matter where you sit, this is gonna be a good drop. Although the difference is still huge, because while you get that good little floater pop near the front, the back row is nuts. The back row gives a sustained amount of ejector airtime, and it's really good ejector. It might be the strongest airtime moment on the ride, although that is very hard for me to judge, but it is so good, strong ejector, and it's very sustained. It feels like such a long drop. The drop feels so steep. It's not completely vertical, but it's not far off either, and you can definitely feel that because it feels almost vertical as well. At the bottom of the valley, you're gonna start to feel some nice positive forces. Now, these positive forces are not necessarily strong, but they're super sustained, and that's actually the case with all the positive forces on this ride. So you're gonna get a nice little push here that just continues all the way up until you're at the top part of the next element, which is of course the iconic stall loop. So as soon as you get out of those positive forces, bam, you're upside down, and you're gonna hang there for around 2.5 seconds. And quite frankly, this element is also fantastic. It's really good hang time. Now, you might have some bigger restraints and of course the vests, but they do not prevent the airtime or hang time at all. You're definitely gonna be hanging out of your seat, and it's fantastic. It's really awesome. If you put your restraint right, you're not going to be touching your seat throughout this hang time moment. Then we come to the whip out of the stall loop, and I did expect this to be whippier than it actually was. It's not super whippy, but you still get some nice smooth laterals towards the right. But what's actually more prominent with this part of the ride is the fact that from the exit of the stall loop through the entrance of the next camelback, you're going to get some nice positive G's as well. It's actually some of the stronger G's on the ride. So you're gonna get some nice smooth, not too extreme whip while going through this section, and of course getting those nice positive G's. At the top of the camelback, you're gonna feel some really good floater airtime up near the front and some weaker floater airtime near the back. This was actually the best indicator for how fast the ride was running. On my first ride, I barely got any airtime on this hill, even though I was near the front. Whereas already on my second ride, I sat in the back and I was already getting better airtime on that hill. That just shows how fast this ride warms up.
Oh, that's hot.
And this hill was the perfect indicator as to how fast the ride was actually running. At the top, you get a quick, slightly whippy transition to the right, and then you get some weaker but sustained positive forces in this turn right here. And then comes perhaps the most intense part of the ride. The hardline roll is amazing, and it is my new #1 favorite inversion. That's right, this ride has my favorite drop and my favorite inversion. It's that good. When I first saw the animation of this hardline roll, I said it could perhaps challenge the hardline roll on Blue Fire in Europa Park, which used to be my favorite inversion, because that's also a super whippy hardline roll, and so is Fønix. The thing is, they're just about as whippy, and they both give amazing ejector airtime while you go through it. But Fønix just feels a lot faster, it's bigger, it's cooler really. This is just an incredible roll that goes so fast, it's so snappy. And the thing is, if you sit on the right side of the train, it's even crazier. You get a little more whip and a little more airtime if you sit on the right side of the train. The difference is not huge, but it is there, so now you know. After that, this turn gives a short dose of weaker positive forces, and then you go into the twisted double down. Now, the entrance to the twisted double down is very much like Fury 325's treble clef, because it just goes straight while it unbanks. So you're gonna feel some very smooth laterals towards the right, but they're not strong, they're just very sustained, and it's very nice. And of course, you're also gonna get some airtime. Now, the airtime on this double down is flojector on both drops, but it's very snappy flojector. It could probably be called ejector as well. Yeah, I'd say this is probably some weaker ejector airtime actually. After that is the twisted bunny hill, which is probably the best airtime moment of the ride aside from the hardline roll. This gives a nice whippy boost to the ride while also giving you some great ejector airtime. Then we have the corkscrew through the station. I've been told by people who have also ridden Leg Coaster that this is exactly like that. It feels completely the same. And I gotta say, it is a very cool corkscrew. It's not the kind where you actually feel floaty or get hang time. In fact, you still stay in the positive forces throughout the element. I'd say you probably stay around 1.5 Gs or something like that while you go through the element, while you get some smooth but weaker laterals toward the left while you roll. So on a force basis, the corkscrew is not that impressive, but it's still an amazing inversion that I really enjoy because it goes through the station, it has the head choppers, and it's so fun to just yell something when you go through this inversion. It's awesome. I loved this inversion. It was really fun. The turn after the corkscrew is probably the most forceful part of the ride. This is a really nice dose of positive forces in this turn. And the outer bank that comes here is the element that has the biggest difference whether or not you sit on the left or the right side. On the right side, you're gonna get a little bit of laterals to both sides and some okay floater airtime. And on the left, all of that is just strengthened and really emphasized. Because on the left side, you get really good laterals to both sides, both the left and right, and you get some really great flojector airtime on this outer bank. It's a fantastic little element. And it's one of the reasons that the left side was probably my favorite side to sit on, but I also like the right side because of the hardline roll. Then you have this twisted drop here, which is very similar to the twisted bunny hill, a really nice pop of ejector airtime and some whip towards the left side. Then you have the double bunny hills. Both bunny hills give some nice, slightly weaker ejector airtime, but it is still ejector. And the second hill is slightly more sustained because it drops a little further down. You can hear on my first ride that I was actually surprised that it was a little more sustained than I thought it was going to be. Woo! Oh! Then you have the wave turn, and this was actually one of the most surprising elements of the ride. I expected this to give a weak pop of floater airtime and not really be that special, but it was actually really good. It gave airtime almost as strong as the bunny hills. I would say it was really good flojector airtime on this wave turn. This turn here doesn't really do anything special, and this drop here gives a little bit of laterals towards the left if you sit near the back, and it's a very weak floater. It is the weakest airtime moment of the ride, if you can even call it airtime. I do, but just barely. And then you have a quick, weak floater airtime into the final brake run if you sit near the front. There's nothing near the back. So the ride actually ends on the two weakest airtime moments of the ride. Actually, kind of the two weakest elements in general on the ride, but that's okay because you've just been blown away anyway. I mean, this entire ride is amazing. I count 13 airtime moments on here, most of which are great and very similar in strength as well. All around, this is just a fantastic layout. It's not the most extreme layout because the forces aren't super powerful. You're not gonna find a leg coaster here, as far as I'm told by people who have ridden a leg coaster, but the layout is so well executed, so well balanced. There's not really any dead spots at all, and it's not repetitive at all either. It's just so fantastic a layout that, I mean, this is an amazing ride.
Gotta go fast, gotta go fast.
That also brings me into pacing, which is of course overall great. The ride never really feels like it slows down. The only part that feels a little slow is of course the stall loop, but that's supposed to be slow. It's a hang time moment, so that does not ruin the pacing at all. It just hauls ass from start to finish, and there's an amazing flow between every element, and the ride duration does not feel short. It's all around good in pacing. There is one exception, of course, and that's if you get on a very early morning ride where it's running cold. It's gonna feel a little slow there, and the pacing might feel a little slower as well, but that's just because it's early morning. Again, that's the thing, this coaster warms up very fast, and it warms up a lot. But even just an hour after it's been running, it's already a lot faster. I noticed that on media day, it warmed up very fast, and on the next day, when we rode it in the afternoon, it was even faster. So right now, in the cold weather, the pacing was already amazing. So just imagine how it's gonna be in the summer.
I am walking on water now.
This is the smoothest coaster I've ever ridden. It's as simple as that. There's not any rattle, no vibration, no roughness, no joltiness or anything. This is a butter smooth coaster. There's no nitpicking. It is the smoothest ride I have ever been on, period.
And on that bombshell,
it's absolute glass. Fønix has a nice medieval-ish theme and magic-ish theme as well. It's a little hard to pinpoint exactly how the theme is, but of course it is themed to a phoenix. Now the cool thing is that the original idea was actually to name it Fønix because of COVID. It felt right to call it Phoenix because we're rising from the ashes of COVID. It was a really cool idea. The buildings are sort of medieval. They have a great looking sign as well that's like a shield. The buildings are of wood and stone, and there are torches, flags. There are even some burned areas because of course a phoenix is a firebird, but yeah, it looks like the bird has then burned some of the wood. And that's just amazing detail. The logos in the cars are also looking really great. That's all the theming you're gonna find on the cars. And there's hardly any theming along the track, but quite honestly, I don't really care. The theming that is there is really good. It's quality over quantity. One big thing that was missing was audio. I could have really used some nice audio to listen to throughout the queue line. Something very similar to what they have at Tion in Fårup Sommerland, actually. That's a thing that can always just boost theming in general. One final thing is that in the animation, there's also mist at the bottom of the first drop. That was not there when I was there, but usually there's also mist other places in the park, like on O'Kanen, for example. And I can imagine they've just turned that off because it was very cold. So I wonder if Fønix will also have that mist at the bottom of the drop when it gets warmer. I really hope so, but I don't know. But overall, yeah, theming is really nice. So to sum all this up, this bitch is an incredible new addition for both thrill seekers and families. It's definitely a thrill coaster. It's a very, very good ride with some solid intensity. Not extreme intensity, it's just very solid. And what I saw there on opening day was that very small children were riding it, and of course adults as well. So it's a perfect addition for literally the entire family. So they've really hit the ball out of the park on this one. It fits the park perfectly and their needs as well. Generally, Vekoma's new looping coasters are just a great innovation from their traditional looping coasters, which are there, they exist. I'm kidding, of course. I really like these coasters, but these new ones still shit on them. Fønix has great balance, flow, pacing, and variety. Every element stands out on its own, and the ride just slaps in general. For the final rating, I'm actually gonna give it a 10 out of 10. I think it deserves a 10 out of 10 because there's literally nothing wrong with it. I think it's just an incredible ride. Now, this just doesn't mean that it's absolute top tier of all coasters I'm ever gonna ride, because I am able to give 10 plus as well. But 10 out of 10 just means that it's absolutely perfect for what it needs to do. There's nothing wrong with the layout. Everything slaps. It's a fantastic coaster. Benjamin Bloemendahl, who is the designer, is a god who understands exactly what some parks need. He's really upgraded from Leg Coaster, which was just this numbingly intense ride, to something here for everybody now. They may not all be super intense, the rides he make now, but for the respective parks, they're typically perfect. So I'm very excited to see more of these coasters pop up. They're really spreading like wildfire right now. They're fucking everywhere. Vekoma is on fire. And also, that was the end of my review. Yeah, this is Denmark's best coaster, in my opinion, and almost everyone I talked to agreed. So let me know what you think of Fønix down in the comments below if you've ridden it. What do you think beforehand if you haven't ridden it? Do you want to ride it? Of course you do. That's a stupid question. Get your ass out to Denmark, bitch, and ride this thing. Leave your questions for the Q&A down in the comments below, and I will see you later. Bye!